What if Mahoraga, the strongest Shikigami of the 10 Shadows technique, went up against the disaster curses during the Shibuya incident? For this scenario to even make any sense, just say that somehow Megumi got jumped by the disaster curses and is forced to summon the treasured Shikigami. This leads into Mahoraga being summoned, knocking Megumi out, and then is now up against Mahito, Jogo, Hanami, and Dagon. Technically, Choso and Kinjaku would be there as well, but we will not be including them as the main disaster curse team is just these 4 spirits. I haven't seen anyone do this topic yet, and shout out to Jordan, who's one of my editors, for suggesting this. With that being said, let's talk about who would win this matchup, starting off with the adapting demon himself, Mahoraga. Now, Mahoraga has only ever participated in 3 fights in the entire series, and one of these take place in Shibuya, which I am mainly keeping this video Shibuya only. So we are basically going to be looking at one fight here, that being Mahoraga versus Sukuna. Not only is it able to press Sukuna and give him the hardest fight he's ever had, being able to survive both his cleave and dismantle, but Sukuna himself would actually have to adapt his cleave technique and essentially overpower Mahoraga before he can adapt. Like, bro had to even rely on his domain expansion, which somehow Mahoraga managed to adapt to it. And the reason for this is because Mahoraga is stated to adapt to any and all phenomena, and the only way Sukuna could actually kill him is straight up overpowering him like a Dragon Ball character. If Sukuna was not so much stronger, or if he was just slightly above Mahoraga, he 100% would have been cooked due to how fast Mahoraga grows in battle. And if it wasn't for Sukuna himself having crazy adaptation, then Mahoraga more than likely would have cooked him. Like, both characters are on some Garo from One Punch Man shit, where they would see something and the same thing would just never work on them twice. Once you throw a move more than once against it, more than likely it's already developed a counter to whatever you're using and will break it down. And on top of all of this, he has his positive energy infused blades that are super effective against curse spirits, which in this battle against 4 curse spirits, this is going to be pretty useful. And speaking of, we can now talk about those spirits, aka the disaster curse team. Now, before I get into what the disaster curses can provide against Mahoraga, I will be saying for the sake of the video that Mahito and Dagon off rip are just fully transformed, and they more than likely know that if they have any chance of survival, probably going to cast their domains pretty soon in the fight if they want to neutralize Mahoraga. We'll save that argument for a little later in the video, but for now, let's just see what the disaster curses also have at their disposal to fight Mahoraga. Dagon can summon a large body of water along with being able to transport his opponent into an island, where he then can shoot an endless stream of Shikigami towards his opponent's way. Dagon as well, on top of all of this, is said to have pretty much boundless HP, as if he were a video game character. Hanami, similar to Dagon, is one of the more durable disaster curses, and he can utilize buds that eat away at your curse energy, and the more you struggle, the harder it is to remove it. He can also manipulate the surrounding areas to try and restrain his opponents, like the trees and shit, and he has a domain, but we just don't know what it really is. However, although we went over the 2 beefy characters of the disaster curses, Jogo and Mahito are by far the 2 strongest, with Jogo being able to summon a meteor that destroys large portions of the city, along with being able to incinerate or melt his opponent with his domain. And lastly, we have Mahito, who leads this group and is able to manipulate and change the shape of not only his own soul, but along with his opponent's. His transformation as well just allows him to tear down his opponent with his physical prowess, and had it not been for Todo, he would have just torn Yuji to shreds. And similar to Mahoraga, although not nearly to the same extent, Mahito is a character that is known for constantly evolving during the battle, and pretty much constantly evolving as he's fighting. And now, let's talk about the fight scenario. The fight starts, and all 4 curse spirits try to jump Mahoraga collectively. They would all try to use their trademark abilities, with Mahoraga then getting hit with consecutive blows all across its body, but as it's being hit, we see Mahoraga soon quickly adapting to the conditions, you know what I mean, the wheel would be spinning, and after recovering and catching the disaster curses off guard, Mahoraga in one swipe would more than likely kill at least 1, if not potentially multiple disaster curses with its blade. This is due to the blade itself hard countering spirits in particular, so the disaster curses already are at a massive disadvantage. And what's worse for them is, unlike Mahoraga, who adapts to anything it instantly sees, the disaster curses don't have any lasting attacks that can overpower Mahoraga and bring it down in a similar fashion to what Sukuna did. And even if Mahito were to somehow grow as the fight went on, or maybe Jogo is figuring out different things about Mahoraga, it wouldn't really matter due to the big gap Mahoraga has already shown between himself, or itself, and the disaster curses. My fault, I can't misgender Mahoraga now. But seriously, Mahoraga adapts to a way stronger Sukuna that was completely bullying Jogo the entire time in their fight. So the only other option they can do to subdue Mahoraga is just use Domain, who can withstand Sukuna's Domain. So I don't think any single one of these domains can affect Mahoraga all that much. And also, if these four were to activate a domain at once, wouldn't they just accidentally get in a domain clash? This would just make Mahoraga's job even easier, bro. He could just take a little nap while these four just settle who's the strongest. Not only can Mahoraga neutralize the curses with just pure hands, but his abilities to adapt to any and all phenomena would be too much for any one of the disaster curses to handle. And even if they were to try and jump him, it just really wouldn't matter. They are probably going to need Kenjaku to try and seal bro, because if not, they are all cooked. Go get Sukuna again, or else this man is about to solo Shibuya for real.